$9 billion. That's not a typo, and that's not spread over a decade. Honda lost that amount on a single bet, and what they decided to do next sends a signal that could reshape the entire future of electric vehicles. But before we get to the decision, you need to understand just how badly things went wrong. On March 12, 2026, Honda dropped a bombshell that caught the industry off guard at every level. 3 of its most anticipated electric vehicles were canceled, and these weren't early-stage concepts sitting on a whiteboard somewhere. The Honda Zero SUV, the Honda Zero Saloon, and the Acura RSX were all months away from rolling off the production line at Honda's Marysville auto plant in Ohio. Every single one of them is now dead. What made this even more jarring was what Honda actually admitted in their official statement. Their own words were that they were unable to deliver products that offer value for money better than that of newer EV manufacturers, resulting in a decline in competitiveness. A company like Honda openly conceding it couldn't keep up is not something you hear every day. To understand how they arrived at this point, you have to rewind to January 2024, when Honda unveiled the Zero Series at CES with bold concept models. A year later at CES 2025, near-production prototypes of the Zero SUV and Zero Saloon appeared alongside a brand-new operating system called Asimo OS. These were real vehicles on a real timeline, not vague promises. The Zero SUV was supposed to arrive in the first half of 2026, the Saloon later that year, and the Acura RSX, a sharp-looking electric crossover that debuted at Pebble Beach, had production scheduled for the second half of 2026. Running alongside all of that was a joint venture with Sony called Sony Honda Mobility, formed in September 2022. That partnership produced the Afeela One, a luxury electric sedan priced from $89,900, and it was supposed to begin deliveries in California by mid-2026 from Honda's East Liberty plant in Ohio. And that's when everything collapsed at once. 13 days after Honda killed those 3 EVs, Sony Honda Mobility announced on March 25th that the Afeela One and its second planned model, an SUV, were both canceled. The reason was blunt. Honda's reassessment stripped away the technologies and assets that Afeela depended on. By April 21st, the entire joint venture was being scaled down, with nearly all employees reassigned back to Sony and Honda, and every $200 reservation deposit refunded. Honda also indefinitely suspended its planned EV value chain project in Canada, which would have included battery production, vehicle assembly, and component supply, all concentrated in Ontario. The LH Battery Company, Honda's joint venture with LG Energy Solution, began redirecting some of its planned EV battery output toward hybrid battery production instead, which tells you everything about where Honda's priorities shifted. Now here's where the financial picture becomes truly staggering. 414.3 billion yen in operating losses, roughly $2.6 billion, landed on Honda's books for the fiscal year ending March 2026. Just 1 year earlier, they had posted a profit of approximately 1.2 trillion yen. The total estimated cost of the EV pullback sits at 2.5 trillion yen, which works out to about $15.7 billion, and most of that will hit in the coming fiscal year. What makes this historic is that Honda had never posted an annual loss since going public in 1957. CEO Toshihiro Maebe addressed it directly, saying this decision was by no means an easy one. He explained that Honda originally chased EVs because they anticipated tightening regulations, particularly California's ACC2 rule, which would have imposed penalties of up to $20,000 per vehicle on automakers that missed a 35% EV sales target for the 2026 model year. But the regulatory ground shifted underneath them. The $7,500 federal EV tax credit expired at the end of September 2025, and in February 2026, the EPA's endangerment finding, which had underpinned vehicle emissions laws for over a decade, was repealed. Honda built its strategy for a world that no longer existed. And they weren't alone, because the combined EV-related write-downs across Honda, Ford, GM, and Stellantis now exceed $67 billion. What came next was a complete strategic reversal, and the scale of it is hard to overstate. Honda is going all in on hybrids. At the May 14th, 2026 business briefing in Tokyo, MEB laid out the new direction. EV investment over the next 3 years will be capped at roughly $5.1 billion, while gas and hybrid programs will receive approximately $27.9 billion, with another $6.3 billion going to software. 15 next-generation hybrid models will roll out globally by the fiscal year ending March 2030. The technology behind this pivot carries real weight. For larger vehicles like the Pilot, Odyssey, and Ridgeline, Honda is developing a new V6 hybrid system with up to 3 electric motors, targeting a 30% improvement in fuel economy over current gas-only versions and 10% faster acceleration, with the first models arriving in 2027. Their mid-size platform brings a next-generation 2-motor system aiming for over 10% better fuel economy and a 30% reduction in system cost, producing approximately 212 horsepower. On top of that, every North American plant will become capable of producing hybrids. What truly signals how permanent this shift is comes down to 2 abandoned targets. Honda scrapped its goal of EVs, making up 20% of new car sales by 2030, and the planned full transition to EV and fuel cell vehicles by 2040 is also gone. Carbon neutrality by 2050 using a mix of EVs, hybrids, carbon-neutral fuels, and carbon offsets replaced both of those goals entirely. The sales data already backs up this direction. Honda's hybrid sales hit a new quarterly record in the first 3 months of 2026 at 95,882 units, and the CR-V and Accord hybrids accounted for more than 55% of their respective sales mix. Compare that to the Prologue, Honda's only remaining EV in North America, which moved just 3,319 units in that same quarter, a 65% drop from the year before. Production of the Prologue ends in December 2026 with no successor planned. A small EV footprint does remain outside North America. The revived Insight nameplate launched in Japan on April 17, 2026, as an electric crossover built in China by Dongfeng Honda, though sales are capped at just 3,000 units and it will not come to the United States. The Compact Zero Series Alpha is still planned for India and Japan starting in 2027, but has been ruled out for the US, Europe, and Australia. MEB was careful to insist that this is by no means an indication that Honda is withdrawing from EV business. But the actions tell a clearer story than any press statement. Honda set a profit target of approximately $8.9 billion by the fiscal year ending March 2029, and the road to getting there runs straight through hybrid showrooms, not EV charging stations. What Honda just did goes beyond a corporate restructuring. $15.7 billion in losses forced a company that hadn't posted a single annual loss in nearly 70 years to completely rethink its future. When a track record that long breaks, the entire industry pays attention.